Final hour overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Later this hour, we'll be up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, Frankie, Corrado. Jack Armstrong will join us later this afternoon, or later this hour, with the Raptors playing the Bulls tonight. Just saw a note that Darko Rajokovic is speaking on Gradey Dick and how they're maybe looking to find him some play with the 905 because he was DNP coach's decision the other night for the first time in his career.
Yeah.
And, he's a young guy. Defensively, he's going to get burned a lot. When he hits shots, he's a serviceable player right now. But if he's having a tough time getting shots off, which he has early in the season, or if he's just not hitting shots, he's not going to play. And he's a young guy. He spent 1 year at school. He's a 19-year-old kid. He's got some warts in his game. I think that's a smart play, man. The Raptors have a long history of developing players and doing it right. That's one of the great aspects of this organization in their history.
And they have to, right? Because we always see the challenges that they face as far as acquiring big-time free agents and sometimes making trades for guys that are reluctant to come here. That has to be the cornerstone of their franchise, what it's all about. Draft well, bring guys along slowly. You're not going to do the guy any harm by putting him in an environment where he can succeed, get a little more playing time, and let him cook. Bring him up when it's time and it's appropriate.
Yeah, and the beauty of them playing in Toronto or the GTA is that it's like the Marlies.
That's right. They're in Mississauga.
Yeah, they're in Mississauga. You send them down. You can bring them back up. It's not. He can stay in his condo. Like there's nothing changing in terms of his lifestyle necessarily. It's just about development. And, again, like Siakam was down there. Van Vliet was down there. There's been a long list of players that have turned out to be really good pros where the Raptors have done right by them by taking it easy, easing them into it, getting them play with the 905. Playing in the G League, there's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't – I don't know when it's going to happen for Gradey, but I anticipate that it will at some point, and I don't think that that's overly surprising. Raptors coming off a big win in Indiana a couple of nights ago against Chicago tonight with the in-season tournament. It's not looking good for the Raps, right? And the in-season
they're
tournament.
Pretty close to done there.
Yes, they're pretty close to eliminating.
It's over before you know it there in that in-season tournament. And I got to say, I don't care. I don't know. I couldn't get into the in-season tournament. I thought the floor being painted different was kind of goofy. I don't know. It still is gimmicky to me. And I understand it's meant to break up the monotony of the schedule and what that entails, but I don't know. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, in my opinion, they have to separate it from the regular season for it to actually feel different. And like you're going to need 70 regular season games and 12 tournament games. You can still make up 82 in total. But the idea that these tournament games count in the standings for the 82 is so ridiculous. And, it might be a scenario where you almost need to, shut the regular season down for a couple of weeks, as opposed to Tuesday games and Friday games or tournament games up until, the middle of December. It's like, how are people supposed to understand that?
That's a good idea. That's a good business idea, man. Yes. You shut down the regular season and you do like what the NHL did the other night when they had all the teams playing on the same night. And they had like the red zone show going where you jump to everyone. Like, do that with the tournament. Really, like, focus on that for a short period of time and push your chips all in on that. That'd be the way to do it. That's why you're a good business guy.
Yes, very good business guy. Very shrewd, Frankie.
Shrewd businessman.
I think that's how you truly make it feel like it's a standalone. Because you're right, just changing the courts and having different jerseys and stuff is not going to do it. Like, no one's going to buy into that. But if you really make it feel different and separate from the regular season, I think it would have a chance. I don't know if it would work because we don't have that history over here in North America. We're not used to that the way they do in Europe, and this is a soccer thing. That's what Silver's trying to do here. I wonder, if they've ever thought about like a March Madness scenario, but they can't do that because the players that play the most games will say, well, we deserve more money. And it's in the CBA where if we got to go all the way through a bracket, what about the team that gets knocked out in the first round? They're just sitting at home doing nothing, but that would be really cool. Like if you shut down for 2 weeks for like a March Madness situation where there's a bracket in the NBA, that would be cool. But again, they're never going to do it because teams will probably tank it so they're out and they can just sit back and practice for 2 weeks.
Well, it always comes down to finances, right? And the financial implications of, a player playing in this bracket kind of thing, and one of your star guys, if he goes down and it's a little bit goofy and gimmicky, and then that costs you playoff gate revenue and everything that comes with that, that's a terrible business decision. Yep. So, and I wonder with the tournament, and if you were to implement something like that with the bracket, like, how much of a financial windfall would be worth it for the players where they're really bought into it? Because right now, what is it, $500,000 for every player if you win this thing?
If you win it, yes.
If you win it. So, like, with the amount of money that these guys are making on their salaries, it would have to be crazy amounts to make a bracket-style tournament worth it for them.
Oh, it would be outrageous.
Ludicrous.
It'll never happen. And I don't think they'd want to take away from their feeder system, the NCAA college basketball, where that is exclusively theirs, March Madness. But, something's going to have to give in the future. But they also have to stick to it, right? If you're going to do this tournament thing, you can't get rid of it in 2 or 3 years. You got to stick to it and hope that it grows. So Jack Armstrong, a little bit later in the hour, the Leafs are coming off a 4-3 overtime loss in Chicago today. Now they're off to Pittsburgh. Like, do you think Dubas and Shanahan meet for dinner tonight in Pittsburgh? Do you think that's on the docket? Or
I don't think that's on the docket.
You don't see that happening?
I could see Dubas and Keefe meeting for dinner.
Yep.
But I could see that, the coaching staff, the guys that he hired there, I'm probably less than 1%, if you ask me on a Jerry's percentage, that Dubas and Shanny are meeting for dinner.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. And, Tree Living's close with them too, right? Now, Pittsburgh is in Buffalo. They're playing at 6 o'clock. So, they'll probably get home by, 10 o'clock, give or take, maybe a late drink. I could see Keefe and Dubas getting together for a cocktail later tonight and just, going over the old days. And
talk about the Sault Ste. Marie days.
Yes, the Greyhound
Marlies
days.
Championship run, all the good times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is Black Friday today, and we figured with that being the case, and I will say I have not seen nearly as many viral videos of like the chaotic mess at a Best Buy or whatever that used to be the case all the time. And it might speak to online shopping. It might speak to COVID being a part of that to an extent, although I think that's probably over now. But remember, like 10 years ago, you'd see by this time, by 6:08 p.m. Eastern time on Black Friday, there'd be 15 videos of people going nuts.
Brawls.
Fights.
Full-on fist fights. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I just don't follow the right accounts, but I have not seen it nearly as much today.
I think you're right. I haven't seen it as much either. Like, there would be full-on brawls for a 42-inch Hisense TV that you could get for $50 more without the brawl.
Right.
I don't know.
I know. And again, you know what it might be also is that they're cheating now at Black Friday. It's a full week, right? Like it started over the weekend last week, and it will continue into the rest of the weekend. Then there's Cyber Monday. Like it used to be focused. Like you got to come in store one day and you can have at it. And things have changed. And as a result, we might be a little bit more civil as a society. I don't want to go too far on that. But I figured with that in mind, we'll play a little game we like to call Buy or Sell, Frankie. All right? Buy or Sell, where I'm going to bring a deal to the table for you, and you can either buy it or you can sell it. Very simple stuff. Very creative stuff. Very simple stuff.
Love it.
All right? Alex Ovechkin went scoreless today. He's starting to pot some goals, but Edmonton pumped Washington 5-0 earlier today. He is sitting on, I believe, 5 goals for the season. Buy or sell, Alex Ovechkin will score 35-plus by the end of the season.
Ooh, I am selling that. I am selling that in a hurry. It just doesn't seem like it's his year, the team around him, although they've played better of late. You watch that Washington team play, he doesn't have a lot of help. I think right now, if you're optimistic about Ovi's season, if he's near 30, I think that's overly optimistic. Like, this could be a 22, 25-goal season for Ovi at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it as well, but it is a tougher sell than what I think you're leading on to, just because of the nature of this player and how he can get hot and score 10 in like 4 games, and all of a sudden he's on pace for 42, right? Like, he seems to do that all the time in his career, where he will put a 2-week, 3-week run together where you'll snap out of it and realize, man, this guy's in a rocket race all of a sudden. But he's 38 now. He has slowed down. like you said, regardless of what the team had been doing prior to today I think is closer to the reality. I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're a very good team at all in Washington. I think he'll touch 30, but 35 plus, 30 more goals in like 64, 65 games. I don't think he's going to be on that pace. Buy or sell, Sidney Crosby will crack 100 points this year.
Ooh,
he's got 22 in 18 games.
22 in 18. I'm gonna sell that as well, and I'm not a hater on Sidney Crosby, but 100 points is very difficult to do. And if this guy gets 92 points, it's going to be an incredible season for him. It'll be very good. 100's, it's hard. It's hard to do it. The team is a 500 team. They are what they are. The power play is not cooking the way people thought it would with the addition of Erik Karlsson. He probably still has a monster year, and it could be in the 90s, but 100 it seems a little out of reach.
Yeah, selling it as well. Last year he had a great year. He had 93 points. He's only had, a couple of 100-point seasons in the last 12 or 13 years. Now, partially based on injury. Clearly, there's a lockout in there as well, which shortened the season. But the last time he had 100 points was in 2018, 2019, and he had 100 on the nose. So I would sell it as well, but I would buy 90 points. I'll buy 90, and I'll certainly buy a point a game. He's done that his whole career. Every single season he plays, he has a point, at least a point per game. And I think 90 is going to happen. I think if they get into the playoffs and he stays healthy, he's chasing a Hart Trophy. Because at this point, I don't know if there's a clear-cut guy. Like Quinn Hughes is getting love for that. Pettersson's getting love. Jack Hughes was before he got injured. Kucherov's been good.
There's going to be a team narrative behind that this year with the Hart, because there's a few teams, like Vancouver's one of them, where people didn't have super high expectations. But if those star players, and probably most prominently Hughes, if they lead the charge and that team's second in the Pacific, that's the kind of narrative you need behind you. And I guess the same would apply for Crosby in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and you're right. I will say it does feel like you're going to see a unique Hart Trophy winner this year. But when you talk narrative, the Oilers scream narrative, right? With the start that they've had, McDavid disheveled, McDavid not playing well. Today he had 4 points. They got to win. If they storm back into the race, get in, and this guy takes off for 60 games, then he'll win it. He'll win it again because that's why he's the MVP. He took a disheveled mess and got it back on the rails, and if he ends up storming back and winning the Art Ross and finishing with 125 points or whatever, he very well could win it again. All right, buy or sell. Let's do a quick two-pack in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills will make the playoffs this season.
Oh,
they have been struggling this year, man. They're at the Eagles this week, Frankie.
And they have the gauntlet of a schedule. They're still in that gauntlet of a schedule.
Yes, and currently on the outside of the playoffs, looking in.
I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell on the Bills. Josh Allen is still a good quarterback in my mind. I don't like the reads that he makes, the interceptions he throws, and now, I think Luke always talks about it, playing hero ball at this point in the season with the desperation that's involved with that team to try and make something happen. I could see a lot more of those big mistakes happening for the Bills, so I'm going to sell that.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it as well. Their next 3 games: at the Eagles, at the Chiefs, at home to the Cowboys. That's the toughest 3-game span you're going to find in the NFL right now, unless you mix in the Niners, maybe at Baltimore. And then they got at Chargers, at home to the Patriots, at Dolphins. So, they might win one of the next 3. They're good enough to do that. I think they probably lose at Miami at the end of the year. Probably beat the Chargers, probably beat the Pats, but it's a logjam in the AFC there. So I'm going to sell on that. How about the Packers making the playoffs? Which I'll go first here. I'm going to buy it, and I understand I'm biased.
Says the guy with the Packers helmet.
I have the helmet right behind me. But this is, again, about the scheduling where you look at it. They're 5-6. They're at Kansas City next week. Or I believe they have Kansas City at home. Sorry, I think they have the Chiefs at Lambeau next week. They do on Sunday night. But then they're at Giants, at home to the Bucs, at the Panthers, at the Vikings, at home to the Bears. They, I believe, will get to 9-8, possibly 10-7. If they're 10-7, they're getting in. 9-8, they'll be right on the border. The NFC, again, it's a terrible division, terrible conference in terms of the bottom end. And I think Seattle's starting to fade. We saw that yesterday. I'm going to buy it. I think the Packers are going to get in.
I'm looking at the standings right now. I'm going to buy it just based on the fact that a lot of their competition, like you pointed out, is not great. Like, I'm not bought in on the Vikings really at 6-5, and then you look at the South. It's like the best team are the Saints at 500, and
right.
San Fran's running away with the West. So I'll buy it, but if I'm on eBay, I'm not going to buy it on the buy it now price. I'm just going to put in some bids and try and, sneak it out, weasel it out, for a cheaper price. I'm not on the buy it now price.
I think that's smart. All right, a quick 2-pack here. Buy or sell. Patrick Kane will have a high impact on any contender that he signs with.
I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. I'm a believer in Patrick Kane. I love the comeback story. Guy had a big injury. He's going to come back and have a big moment in the playoffs for a contender. I'm buying that.
Okay, I'm going to sell it just because of where he is in his career. I think it's really difficult to jump on a moving train with a new team. I think if he was going back to Chicago, or he never left Chicago and they were a great team and he was just moving back into that room, but it's difficult to transition into a room that's not yours. You're not familiar with it. You're going to play like 40 to 50 games. You're coming off major surgery. I still think he's got game left. I think there will be flashes. And I think if he gets through the rest of the year healthy, next year he's got a real chance at bouncing back and being very effective. But I think this is tough for him. I think it really is. I'm going to sell that.
That's fair.
Last one here. Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Lightning will improve significantly with the return of Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Ooh, big dude. I'm going to buy that one with the buy it now price.
Really? You're paying anything you can pay.
I will buy it now price, hammering that button right through the PayPal account. Yes, they are going to improve significantly with Vasilevskiy. I understand he's been off injured, but guess what? He's been off, and that's probably not a bad thing for a guy that's played a lot of hockey over the last few seasons, 3 straight trips to the Stanley Cup final. He probably could have used a little time off, so I think Andrei Vasilevskiy has a big impact for Tampa.
Okay. I'm actually going to sell this. Call me a hater here, but their team... they've lost a lot of pieces.
Yes.
They've lost pieces. They have played a lot of hockey. I know it was an earlier spring for them last year, but collectively over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a lot. And I'm just not convinced that Vasilevskiy will just step right in and be all-world again. He will return to that at some point in his career. He's still, if not the best goalie in the league, he's one of the 3 or 4 best. He's been a machine for years, but he's coming off a shortened offseason, no camp whatsoever, no preseason. Again, jumping on a moving train, 20 games into a season where this is not a team that's chugging. They're going to have to fight to get in.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have some struggles to kind of find his game, coming off some pretty major surgery there.
Those are good. It's fair. It's legit. I learned something about you today.
Did you?
You're a skeptical Black Friday shopper.
I am very skeptical. Very skeptical.
But when something comes across your page, maybe it's a new putter, maybe it's something from Golf Town, you will hammer that button just like you did the Green Bay Packers. You're tested and true.
That's right. If it's something I'm familiar with and comfortable with, I am brand loyal. I am very brand loyal, and I will go back to the well.
Yeah.
There you go. Buy or sell. Maybe get into a bit of more of that later in the hour. Jack Armstrong coming up, teeing up Raptors, Bulls tonight. Our best bet still to come, brought to you by FanDuel. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Best bet's brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Leafs lose 4-3 in overtime, and the Tim Boyle experience went basically exactly how you expected it would. Dolphins beating the Jets 34-13. So not the best on Black Friday for the New York Jets, but we'll see if the Raptors can turn things around. They got a big one tonight with Chicago in town, the in-season tournament, coming off a win in Indiana a couple of nights ago. Let's head down to the building. Here's our main man, our TSN Raptors analyst, Jack Armstrong. How you doing, Jack?
Hi, Bryan. How you doing?
Doing well. Looking forward to it tonight. I saw earlier today Darko was speaking on Gradey Dick and how they might be looking to get him some run and with the 905, I mean, that seems to make a lot of sense to me, Jack. What do you make of it, and where the kid's at early in his career?
Well, when I reflect back on the fact that Fred VanVleet, DeLon Wright, Pascal Siakam, to name a few, and have all played with the 905, and it was a good experience for them, then why wouldn't you do it? If he's not going to play major minutes for your team, and he's struggling a little bit right now with the experience, and I think it makes a lot of sense for him to play with the 905. And on top of that, when you look at the fact that for him personally, he needs reps, he needs minutes and opportunity to play. I think sometimes you play a little tight when you're on a shorter leash. So I think having that longer leash, and that's organizational investment in you, that they're going to let you play a lot. You're going to be able to play through mistakes more than you can with the big club, understandably so. To me, it makes a lot of sense for him to have an opportunity to play and play a lot for the 905. And again, you look at the proof in the pudding. A lot of the great success stories with the Raptors have been guys that played for the 905. So why not Gradey Dick, another success story? And bottom line, that team needs help. I mean, they haven't won a game yet. So, it would kind of help having a guy like Gradey Dick on your team.
Jack, what have you made of the in-season tournament? You're right down there, up close and personal. Do you like it? Are you a fan of it? Have you been able to buy into the whole experience of the in-season tournament?
You know what? I like the idea. I think I think they'll tweak it as we go along and make it better and better. The one thing I would automatically say is I don't like the idea of like having an in-season game on Tuesday night at Orlando and then a regular season game in Indy on Wednesday, and then a in-season game on Friday in Toronto against Chicago, and then the next game in Cleveland on Sunday at I would rather see the games 4 nights in a row or 5 nights, whatever they want to do, all of them being in-season tournament games and have a little bit more momentum to it. So that would be one of them. And I think the other thing is for the teams that are eliminated, automatically announce who their opponents are going to be and what the dates are going to be so people can plan accordingly. I think, when you're staring right at the holidays, good luck with getting referees around the country to assignments. Good luck getting hotel rooms at the holiday in some of these big cities. So I think, a better logistical feel for it, considering the time of year that you're trying to do this stuff. I mean, I'm in the television business, trying to book TV crews, all the different technicalities that come with that. You could say, well, all you got to do is say, well, these are the dates that it's not that easy. And so to me, I think when you do a lot of stuff that's TBA in season, particularly near the holidays, that's difficult.
With Jack Armstrong, Raptors, Bulls tonight, what has been very evident early in the season and at times very frustrating to watch is how poorly the Raptors have started, Jack. And you've seen it again up close and personal, how many times they've been down 15, 20, 20+, and on a couple of occasions they came back and won those games. But when you play serious teams, that's just simply not going to happen. And I'm curious, how you feel they can rectify that and what they need to do to change that process, because it's been a big issue early in the season.
Well, the good thing is the team they're playing is even worse at the beginning of games, and that's the Chicago Bulls. I mean, they have been a disaster in first quarters. So it'll be fascinating tonight to see which team actually gets it going here. Maybe both teams it'll be a 16-16 game after the first quarter. Who knows? But that's been a problem. And, you say to yourself, okay, do you tweak the starting lineup? If you do, who are you taking out? Who are you putting in? What's the differential that's going to be in play there that's going to make you that much better if you do that? Is it part of your pregame routine in terms of your warm-ups, your prep? I don't know what it is. Some guys are self-starters. Some guys need to break the sweat and get going and feel the game a little bit. Then their level comes up a notch. So I wish I had an answer to it, but there isn't one that jumps off the page at me that says to me, hey, that guy's got to come out of the lineup. That guy's got to come in. I'm not feeling that or seeing that. So I maybe part of it is you go into the game early on. Maybe you try to focus. It's like football coaches sometimes they script the first X number of plays in a game. Maybe some of that. Like maybe you say, okay, we're going to try to run these particular play calls early and get this guy going, establish these matchups, get some easy shots early on. Again, you go through all that stuff when you have a team that doesn't start well. I mean, I learned years ago when I was a college coach and assistant coach at Fordham, one of the coaches I worked for, Tom Penders, had a great idea. We had an auxiliary gym near our arena, and he would have us go down and we would scrimmage for 15 minutes before we went upstairs and did our traditional warm-up, just to have guys really engaged and ready to play. And so I learned something there in terms of when you have a team that isn't a great team out of the gate. And as you know, in the NBA, the team that wins the first quarter wins over 70% of the NBA games.
Jack, I realize it's easy to get into foul trouble in a game, but is there a certain level of grit that this Raptors team needs to play with? You look at last game against Indiana, 13 offensive boards. They basically doubled up Indiana as far as getting to the line. Like, how much more successful are the Raptors when there is an element of grit to their game?
It always helps. But I think this group, I wouldn't say they're not gritty. I think the effort. I did think the effort's there. It's just one of those teams that I think it's more about fit. It's more about style. I mean, when I look, I think Scottie Barnes is playing about as hard as you could play. Jakob Poeltl plays hard. OG Anunoby plays hard. Schroeder plays hard. Siakam is engaged. I mean, there's not a lot of guys out there that aren't bringing sandpaper that play soft. I don't think this is a soft team at all. I think there's a lot of grit. I just think some of it's talent level, some of it's fit, some of it's a lack of shooting, and not only shooting from the three, but like we saw the other night, they're not a great free throw shooting team. So sometimes we're always looking for more grit when in fact sometimes skill helps too.
Yeah, you mentioned, the percentages at the line, and like Gary Trent in particular is like what we saw the other night, Jack. Man, did he get bailed out. But yeah, listen, you got a team here where there's an element of transition going on. They were 9th in the East last year. That's currently where I believe they sit going into the game tonight, game under 500. But, Scottie Barnes, you mentioned the effort, and I just think the way he's been contributing across the board has been exactly what you could hope for. Last year was, a bit of, I wouldn't say it was a step back. It was a sophomore season, very predictable in pro sports. He had a tough year. There were ups and downs, but I've loved this game early in the season, and I'm curious how much more you think there is for Scottie to reach even this season. Forget 5-7 years down the road. Like, how much better could Scottie Barnes be by mid-January, early February?
Hey, look. I don't know if it was Aristotle or Socrates, some real smart person said excellence is a habit, not an act. So to me, to answer your question, Brian, he's doing some incredibly special things, and we all know the great ones do it each night. There's a habitual element to it where you look at the guy and you go, it's there every night. So you can close your eyes and whatever number you want to think in your mind and say 24, 11, 6, 2 blocks, 2 steals, whatever, you close your eyes and you're getting that almost on a relatively consistent basis every night. And if that's the case, then to me that's takes away the volatility a lot of times that young players have in their game, where it's one night they look like a world beater, and the next night you're like, where is this person? You're sending a search party out for them, and. So to me, I think that's the breakthrough moment. I don't know statistically if he can get to much higher numbers. I guess you can. I don't know what those are because he's so young in his career. But to me, the thing I'm looking for is just the consistency. And the thing I'm seeing from a consistent standpoint now that I did not see last year is a guy that is consistently playing really, really hard every night. And I think when you do that, you got a greater chance of hitting whatever that proverbial ceiling is in your game. And, Brian, you made a point before about the transitional nature of this franchise and the roster right now. Getting prepared for this game tonight, I came across something really interesting. That the Raptors, since last year, have lost 12 games that were decided by 3 points or less. So, you look at that, they played 15 games this year. They played 82 games last year. That's 97 games with 2 different head coaches. So you can look at, Nick Nurse and Coach Darko and coaching and this and that, and you say, okay, what tactically could you have done better? What in terms of bringing greater performance out of guys will close that gap. And then you answer that part of it. And then the other part of that question is, okay, how do you close the gap from a personnel perspective? So at what point now in that transition are we at where it's, okay, you change coaches, okay, and now it's the other element where the other shoe falls, the other shoe drops, and you go, okay, this is what your roster is. You've had 12 of these games in the last 97 games where you have, lost by 3 points or less. You're right there. So what player or players are going to make the difference in turning those 12 games or 8 of those 12 games into wins? And, how do you find the solution to that? So I still think it's a journey that they're on, that they got to choose a lane personnel-wise where they want to go and go from there. And I think the fascinating part is I think we're going to see that develop here in the weeks ahead.
Raptors Bulls tonight. He is Jack Armstrong. Jack, do me a favor. If the Raptor fans are booing DeMar at the line tonight, get on the mic and scold them and tell them to stop doing it. Will you do that for me?
They will not do that. I tell you that. He's a beloved guy. And honestly, think about it. If the Spurs fans were booing Uncle Dennis instead of Kawhi, I don't think Pop would have gotten on the microphone.
That's probably true. That is true. Enjoy it down there, Jack. Really appreciate you doing this, as always.
You got it. All the best.
There he is, Jack Armstrong, our TSN Raptor analyst, and Raptors Bulls on TSN tonight.
I heard you guys talking about that yesterday, the Popovich thing. That was one of the most arrogant things I've ever seen at a sporting event.
Yeah.
And I know you guys said the same thing. It's so arrogant. My goodness.
There's very few people on earth that would have the audacity to do that during a game, grab a microphone, tell the person that's operating the microphone to turn it on so that you can scold 18,000 people. And then after the game, claim that it was strategic. Don't poke the bear. That's why I said that.
The bear.
Let these guys play. It's got no class. It's not who we are.
Yeah. Listen,
thanks,
it's no class. It's not who we are. Oh, really? But then afterwards, it was strategic. Don't poke the bear. You're 3
I heard a story
Pop.
about Pop when I was playing for Toronto. Actually, we had some guys that had worked under him in San Antonio, and he had this weird rule, I guess, where like the training staff and those kinds of guys weren't allowed to be seen with food, like even like grabbing a snack around the room when the players were around. It was like just a pet peeve of his. So if you got a little growl on while the players were in the facility, you had to like hide, a bagel. You had to hide it from Pop. If Pop saw you, like he didn't like that, he was going to scold you about it, which is just another, classic Pop like arrogance kind of thing.
That's it, man. I mean, the guy. He's done it all. He's won. He coached the U.S. team, the national team. They won 5 rings down there. Now he's revived because he's got Wembanyama, although the team is still really struggling and losing a lot of games. But he's insufferable. Gregg Popovich is insufferable, and he's been that way forever. And now that they stink, it's like Belichick. People are like, can you just stop? Like you're not winning anymore. We don't care.
Well, that's the aura about
so
it. If you're winning, you look like a genius. You grab the microphone and you want to go off topic about something. People are like, yeah, like that guy, he knows, right? Like look at but he looks like a mad scientist these days with a bad team. So no one, he doesn't have that aura.
You're not getting the support, right? Like even if you disagree with it, if they're 12-3 and they just won a title, you're like, it's Pop being Pop. What are you going to do? But it's not anymore because they haven't been successful since Kawhi and Uncle Dennis left. They've been an awful team for 3 or 4 years, and they're still awful. And yet he's all grouchy and holier than thou, and it's insufferable. We'll see where that goes because I'd love to see the faithful down there just boo everyone that's at the line the rest of the season.
No kidding.
That would be great. Not just Kawhi. Anybody steps to the line, they get booed. And that should be a thing now because of Pop, to see just his head pop off down there because you don't want to poke the bear. Don't want to poke the bear,
man.
Got to make sure you're careful with that bear, according to to Gregg Popovich.
You never know who's going to be a bear at the line.
Right. Mail It In Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza's new Square Footer Pizzas. BP is reinventing the wheel with our 3 new Square Footer Pizzas, an entire square foot of more cheese, crunch, and taste. These new pizzas are an absolute must-try at your local BP tonight. Leafs coming off a 4-3 loss in overtime in Chicago today. We'll come back and look back on that. Tee up Leafs Pittsburgh tomorrow. Raptors Bulls tonight. A full slate of NFL games this weekend. We're tracking MLB news as well, right? Still nothing, man. There's a lot of people wondering when Shohei Ohtani's going to make a call. I don't think he's in any rush to do anything. Frankie Corrado's in here. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and up on TSN 2. All right, TSN 1050's Leafs lineup is your chance to win Maple Leaf tickets every week all season long. Today's player of the day is Turk Broda. Turk Broda. This week, we're giving away a pair of tickets to see the Leafs take on the Bruins December 2nd, and we're throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card with each pair of tickets to make it the ultimate game night. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro-Canada. Phone lines are open, 416-870-1050, 416-870-1050. Your final player of the week for the Maple Leaf lineup is Turk Broda. So, yeah, that'll be Leafs-Bruins next Saturday night. That's going to be big. I'm going down to that game, too. I will be in the building, and I am looking forward to it. I'm bringing my kids to the game, which is going to be quite the experience because I've brought them to sporting events before, Frankie. Like, we've been to junior games.
Yeah.
You know, we've been to
did
Marley
the Jays?
games.
I remember you did the Jays.
We've done the Jays, which I think we lasted about 5 innings before we decided to walk around the park for a couple of innings.
Yeah.
Which was actually probably about what I expected. And I'm not sure what to expect next weekend, but it's a Leaf-Bruin game. I want to watch the whole game.
Oh,
you know,
of course.
Like, I don't want to miss a second of that game.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be about keeping them up and keeping them occupied. And
well, I remember. I think you and I were doing the show together shortly after you had done the Jays game with your kids, and you were telling us like, yeah, we had to do laps around the building, and you'd be surprised at how many different things there are to do at the ballpark.
Right.
Actually, you don't realize that when you're there without kids, right? But you seek out all these things. Now, here's where things could get interesting for you and the kids at the Leaf game. At what point in that game, if they want to start doing laps around Scotiabank Arena, do you have to say, I need everyone to settle down here because I need to formulate some hot takes for this week, and I need to watch this game to get those takes?
That's exactly what has to happen. Like, I'm there to work, right? This is not enjoyment for me. This is not entertainment. I'm here to work. This is where I need, like, Carlton the Bear to hook me up big time. I need Carlton to come over, hang out for about an hour, and, then I can really put in some serious time. But
yeah,
I'm assuming I'll have the same reaction because you're right. I remember that walking around the Rogers Center where I've been going there since '89, since it opened. And, over the last 25 years, I've been going there as an adult effectively. And it's like I just walk in, find my seat, sit down, watch the game, and then leave. But with kids, you're walking everywhere. And you're like, this is a part of the stadium I've never seen before. I didn't even know this existed. Right. And I never would because 10 years ago I had, 10 beers and was down here with 3 buddies, and we weren't really concerned about the kid zone. But we'll be figuring that out down at Scotiabank next week. Leafs back in action tomorrow night. They had it today. They had it this afternoon, man. Up 3-1 against Chicago. They end up losing in overtime. They still got a point, so I guess you look back on it, their last 5 regular season games, which have been really strange because of the scheduling. They beat Calgary, they beat Vancouver, then they beat Detroit and Minnesota in Stockholm. They lose in overtime today. That's a lot of points. They have accumulated points. But
which is important. Like, it's important to point that out, that you need to find ways to stockpile points here. But with a game like that where you get a point against Chicago, it's an empty feeling because if that was a game against a really good team and the first line didn't have it, just like tonight, first line didn't have it, but you salvage a point, you really grit your way to a point in overtime, you're like, you'll take that, man. Good teams find a way to get a point. But with the way that went down, up 3-1 against Chicago, a supremely inferior opponent, you have that game in the palm of your hands, you throw out veteran guys to start a period, and next thing you know, it's tied up, and you don't find a way to close. Like, that leaves a sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah, and that's it. And over those games that we talked about last weekend, they're down 2-0 against Detroit, and they needed heroics in the third period to come back and effectively steal a game. And then against Minnesota, they were up 3-1 against Minnesota. Again, a bad team, a team that's really struggled. They gave up goals, went to overtime. Willie scored. Today, Willie didn't. He had a breakaway that went post, crossbar, post.
Triple
in
doink.
Overtime. Triple doink to end his streak. What a run for William Nylander. 17 games in a row with a point. But, yeah, Samsonov gave up a goal or two that you don't want to see. Couple of defensive breakdowns, couple of giveaways against a bad team in Chicago. But, you dust yourself off. You fly to Pittsburgh. You got the Penguins tomorrow. Pittsburgh are in Buffalo tonight. So there's no advantage or disadvantage. If anything, the Leafs are going to get in there first, right?
Yeah.
They wrapped up their game. Yeah, Pittsburgh's still on the ice. They started, I think, at 6 o'clock against Buffalo. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the Steelers against the Bengals. I'm liking the offensive coordinator bump for the Steelers, right? Matt Canada, he's out. He's been deported. He's out, Matt Canada. And I think you're going to see a different offensive scheme. I think the Bengals are going to be really deflated losing Burrow for the year. I think they fade here badly. I like the Steelers. Raiders are getting 8.5 at home against Kansas City. The Raiders have played well under Antonio Pierce. They've stayed in games.
Their defense is not bad. The Raiders' defense is not that bad.
And the Chiefs have not been blowing teams out. You're getting 8.5 at home against a divisional rival. I'll take the Raiders, and I'm going to lay the points. The Ravens at the Chargers Sunday night. The Chargers have been a mess. They find ways to lose. I think Baltimore's a legitimately really good team, and with Kansas City losing last week, they got that top seed. They know what they're fighting for in the AFC. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Same-game parlays this NFL season now include passing touchdowns and receptions on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 19+ and physically located in Ontario. So it's been a cool couple of days, right? You had an afternoon Leaf game today. You had a football game today where the Dolphins beat up on the Jets. You had 3 ball games yesterday. We didn't even talk about it last night. Christian McCaffrey is – you talk about narratives. We were talking about the Hart Trophy in the NHL and how the door's open for someone to walk through that we weren't anticipating would. Feels the same way in the NFL, where historically it's always been a quarterback-driven award. I think the last time a non-quarterback won the MVP was Adrian Peterson. There was a run on running backs in the early 2000s. AP, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander.
Would Reggie Bush have been in there?
He's been in it, but he never won it. Marshall Faulk won it. Marshall Faulk won it with the
Speaking
best
of
show
Marshall Faulk, did you watch? I just watched for the first time last night that Kurt Warner movie on Netflix.
I haven't seen it.
Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Watch that.
Yeah,
but McCaffrey, you talk about a guy, he is so clutch. He's getting a touchdown for you seemingly every single night.
Game.
Every game he's getting one. I don't know why he can't be the MVP. He's the most valuable player to that team. That's a very good team. If you're asking anyone around the league right now, pick one player to have on your team. I think a lot of people are saying McCaffrey.
McCaffrey's been outstanding, and you look at it, Mahomes has been very good, not out of this world. Jalen Hurts has been good, but his stats aren't outrageous. He's got 15 touchdowns, 8 or 9 picks, I think. He's run for touchdowns, but that's the tush push. They're pushing him over the line.
Right.
And Lamar's been pretty good. C.J. Stroud's been good. But it feels like the door could be open for McCaffrey, for maybe Tyreek Hill. We'll see what comes of it. It's going to be a great weekend with the Leafs in action tomorrow, Raptors in action tonight on TSN with the Bulls in town, more football games. Mail It In Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza's new Square Footer Pizzas. BP is reinventing the wheel with our 3 new Square Footer Pizzas, an entire square foot of more cheese, crunch, and taste. These new pizzas are an absolute must-try at your local BP tonight. My house will be electric this weekend because I've got my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, 2 nephews here. The Silver Stick is going on out here in my neck of the woods.
The Whitby Silver Stick is awesome. Love that tournament.
It's a big tournament, man.
Yes.
It's a big one. It's scattered all over Whitby, and there's 1 million teams up here, 1 million American teams.
Yeah.
So, he plays for the Hamilton Steel, and they're in the tourney. They started today with a couple of games. They got a couple tomorrow, so I'll be kicking around the rinks tomorrow.
Is that still at the Iroquois Falls Arena in Whitby? That
Iroquois is world famous.
Yeah, it's
world famous.
That's a nice spot, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a
that
cool
Silver
rink.
Stick tournament is like I just remember playing a million scouts watching you there.
It's a ton of scouts.
Yeah.
College scouts, OHL scouts, junior B scouts. And the beauty of that rink is it's like 5 minutes away from a golf town, and I will get there tomorrow. Golf Town's Black Friday sale is bigger and better than ever, and it's on now in-store and at golftown.com. We also have a $500 gift card to give away right now. I have 15 reads in this segment, Frankie, and I'm going to wrap it up with a $500 gift card courtesy of Golf Town. 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. Caller 10 right now picks up a $500 Golf Town gift card. This Black Friday sale is your chance to save on huge store-wide and site-wide deals from the top brands in golf like TaylorMade, Callaway, Nike, Garmin, and more. Visit golftown.com for more details. Frankie, good stuff, buddy. Thank you for stepping in today. The O-Dog was on the panel. Noodles calling a game tonight, Ottawa Islanders, and it's going to be a fun weekend. So thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. As always, we appreciate that. Everyone for tuning in today, radio, TV, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your weekends. We're back Monday at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.